Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Chris. Together we're the Gen X couple.
Hey guys.
Take one. Hi everyone.
So I have to tell you guys real quick because this came up suddenly this morning and I don't know whether to believe it or not, but Chris told me that he invested $25 into some time traveling scheme. Can you please tell everyone what you told me? And please tell me whether you were serious or joking. Because I think you're serious and that's a little scary.
If I disappear within the next 5 minutes, we know.
No, tell everybody what you told me exactly, please, because I can't be the only one to hear this. Okay, go.
You take $25 and it was invested into this fund. And then...
This fund?
Time Traveler Fund.
Who started the fund?
There's a board of directors and everything.
Yeah, who are these guys?
So
Are they sitting in a bomb shelter right now, like underground?
No. So the theory is that time travel will be invented, say, 500 years from now. So when time travel is invented 500 years from now, that $25 I invested will be compounded over those 500 years to be like $10 billion. So when time travel is invented...
That math isn't mathing for me.
It is.
Okay.
They will use that part of my money to buy my trip from now into the future.
So just you, not me, not your children, not Marshmallow, just you?
This was done
selfish.
This was done pre-marriage. So, and pre-Marshmallow. So I might have to update my application. But we'll see if I disappear within... So you know what happens.
You actually did invest $25 to this quote-unquote fund by these quacks. So you wasted $25 is what I'm hearing.
We'll see when I leave, I disappear.
Well, I was going to say, if you wouldn't just disappear, there would be people that came in to get you. So what if
we don't know what's going to happen. It might be people. I might just be gone. I don't know if I go back in a DeLorean they pick me up in.
Marty McFly coming back.
We'll see what happens. I don't know if it's like the doctor who comes, so we'll see.
Yeah. So this is what I am dealing with, you guys. And Chris had no idea I was even going to bring that up right now because we're actually here to do a year in review podcast.
Now I'm just adding Marsh to the application. You're not getting added.
That's fine, because God knows what this country's even going to be in 500 years or whenever, or if they're even going to invent time travel. Anyway, let's get back to why we're here today. And I hope you guys had a good holiday, whatever you guys celebrate. I hope you guys survived. We had a really quiet Christmas this year, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah, everyone was happy.
Yeah, we had dinner at my dad's house, and he made a traditional turkey dinner, which was nice because it was actually our second turkey dinner this year, and it's been years since we've had one. Our last one, I think, was in Key West.
It was either Key West or at the military hotel in New York City.
Yeah, so we always travel for Thanksgiving, so we haven't had a traditional Thanksgiving dinner in many years. I think I mentioned this in the Bridgewater Triangle episode, but if you're wondering why we're not big on Thanksgiving, Google the National Day of Mourning, and that should answer any questions you may have as to why. So, since I brought it up, one of our Thanksgiving trips was to Key West, and that was an amazing trip. That was such a good trip. And on Thanksgiving Day, what we did is we ended up paying for a reservation at a pool club sort of place. And so we ended up getting access to the pool and a buffet Thanksgiving dinner for the afternoon. It was like 3 or 4 hours or something. So it was a buffet, but it was still a traditional turkey dinner with all the fixing. And that was, 10 years ago at this point?
Yeah, at least. But it was nice to have the Thanksgiving right by the pool.
Yeah, it was so nice. That was really, really nice. I want to go back so bad. And since Chris brought this up as well, Chris and I went to New York City at least three times over Thanksgiving. 2 of those times we saw the Macy's Day Parade. That's a story for another day, but it was a bucket list experience for me. And we actually should talk about that someday.
We should, because we have some good tips, and we can tell the story about the groupie blanket.
Ooh, yes, yes. Let me make a note to circle back to that at some point. Maybe next Thanksgiving we can give our tips. But anyway, so when we went to New York City, we used to stay at this military hotel on Lexington Avenue. It was only for active military or veterans, so they were the only people that were able to make reservations there. And sadly, the hotel shut down during COVID, like a lot of businesses. But when it was open, we used to be able to stay there for very, very reasonable rates. The point of me telling you that we stayed at the military hotel is just to say that they did a traditional Thanksgiving dinner every year on Thanksgiving for all the people staying at the hotel. And plus, it was open to any military personnel along with their families or veterans that wanted to join them for dinner. It was open to anybody. It was really nice. They had a really nice turkey dinner with all the fixings, and it was totally free. There were always a couple of people there alone, so it was wonderful that they had somewhere to go so they didn't have to be alone for Thanksgiving. We had dinner there 2 out of the 3 years that we stayed in New York City over Thanksgiving, because I believe one of the years we went to Chinatown and had Chinese food.
Yeah, and that's rice. And New York City is
That's
great.
rice? You
Yeah,
said that's rice.
yeah, we had some rice there.
I think what you were trying to say is really nice. I love you.
And New
But
York
yeah,
City,
rice. We had rice.
we did. New York City is great during Christmas. There's so many decorations to see. I love going to New York during December, November.
Yeah, I think we talked about New York at Christmas time when we did our 3 Times We Almost Died podcast. And I believe the Chinese food recommendation was a place we got from, I see you laughing over rice. We got that recommendation from my brother-in-law. So thank you, Phil, because that was actually really good food. But we got way off topic because today we're here to talk about this year. And we figured it was a good time for us to do a year in review episode since it's the last Thursday of 2024. And obviously, we're still kind of new around here, and I just got the giggles. And you guys are still getting to know us, so we thought it would be a good way for you guys to get to know us a little better.
Yeah, now that the kids are older, Robin and I have been experiencing a freedom that we haven't had in a long time.
Yeah.
We've been able to go on some solo trips, and we've been able to see a ton of shows, which is really cool.
Yeah, we are definitely living our best lives right now. And I'm going to start, I think, by telling you guys all the concerts we went to this past year. Before I tell you the concerts we've been to, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that when I first met Chris, he had literally only been to 1 concert in his entire life. Do you want to tell them who that was?
The Cranberries.
Yeah, the Cranberries. I've seen them twice, I think. They were, at least the first time I think they opened for Aerosmith. I think the second time I saw them, they were the headliner. But I've had such a hard time wrapping my brain around that because I was brought up around music. My parents brought my sister, brother, and I to tons of concerts when we were kids. And by the time I was in junior high, I was going to concerts with my friends, like alone. I've been to so many concerts, probably hundreds at this point. I've lost count. So anyway, it's kind of been my mission to get Chris out there to see some more live music. When the kids were younger, it wasn't as easy, and we did bring the kids to some concerts, just like my parents did for me. But now that they're older, we can go alone. We're definitely getting out there more. The last couple of years especially. And going to concerts is probably one of my favorite things, other than going to Disney, of course, which is my favorite thing. Like, that's number one. That will always be number one. That has always been number one. But I love going to concerts. And thankfully, in 2024, I really got to live my best 80s concert life. I saw so many artists this past year that I've never seen before live, and it was amazing.
And every year, my concert count is going up.
Yeah, that's the plan. Okay, so the first concert we went to this year wasn't a concert exactly, but it was called the Johnny Cash Experience. We took my dad to see this because I knew that he liked Johnny Cash. My dad likes getting out to do things, so I thought he would really like it, and I was right. He had a really good time.
They had a live band playing, and they sang a few songs, but then they have scenes from Johnny Cash's show playing on the screen in the background. And he would actually sing the song on the screen while the band was playing live music. It was pretty cool and interesting.
It was very cool, and I'm pretty sure you said blackground instead of background. I just have to point these things out because I love you. It was really cool, though, and to be honest, I'm not a country music fan. Sorry, guys. But it was pretty neat to see the video footage of him from his variety show up on the screen in the back, and just to see how they put the show together. Side note to the country music comment, when we were in Nashville, I loved country music. I want to go back to Nashville so bad. You can't help but be a country music fan when you're in Nashville.
Yeah, we gotta have to add Nashville back on the list.
Yeah, one of these days we definitely have to go back because it was such a good trip and I just felt like it was unfinished. We went there over Thanksgiving, what was it, 3 years ago now or 2? I can't even remember. But we just didn't have enough time when we were there. We did a ton of stuff when we were there, but there were so many cool bars and restaurants that we wanted to go to and we just didn't have the time to do everything. So we definitely have to get back there. But anyway, back to the concerts we went to in 2024. See, this is my issue. I keep getting off topic. But, so, you guys know, we live here in Massachusetts. I would say, from my perspective, the concert season here is the summer season. Because there are a couple of venues here that they do what I would call outdoor concerts, even though part of the venue is under pavilions. So what I mean by that is like the first 2 sections would be under a pavilion, but then everything else in the back would just be lawn seats. Does that make sense? I hope so. Yeah. So basically it's all open air. Just some of the seats have a cover over them. But obviously they can't do concerts at those kind of venues, say between like October and May, because it's winter here in Massachusetts and it's cold. So that's why I say that summer is concert season. So anyway, here are a few of the shows that we saw over the summer. So we saw Alanis Morissette and Joan Jett open for her, and she was so good. And then we saw Third Eye Blind with Yellow Card, and that was fun because we went with a bunch of friends, and then 2 of your brothers were there. That was actually really fun. And then we saw the Counting Crows with Santana. And then, so we saw this guy from the Moody Blues. He was at this small venue in Plymouth. It's called Plymouth Memorial Hall?
Yep.
Okay. That's what I thought it was called. So the Moody Blues is like an old-timey band from the 60s, and I think they went into the 70s, and I know they had like a quote-unquote comeback in the 80s.
I'm still counting it on my concert list.
No, you should, because it definitely was a concert. So the guy's name was John Lodge, but he was a guitar player in the band, and I just have to also say that he's very, very elderly now. But I thought my dad would really like the show since the Moody Blues is his all-time favorite band. But the guy, John Lodge, who was fine, was like a background singer. So at the concert, he was out there singing the songs, but he wasn't the lead singer of the band. So it wasn't as great as I think it would have been if it had been the true lead singer of the band, who I forget his name. It's like Justin something. But I've actually seen the Moody Blues a bunch of times with my dad. Not a bunch, but a handful of times, like at Great Woods and... Actually, I don't know if it's been anywhere else. But so we saw him, but he was actually indoors, but we did see him over the summer. And then I saw the New Kids on the Block with Paula Abdul, and Donnie Wahlberg is my first love. And then he's making a face. You guys can't see it. This is why we need visual, too. Actually, I don't want to be on camera. I take that back. So we saw Motley Crue and Boy George, and those were both in September at indoor concert venues. And then in October, we saw Duran Duran and Cyndi Lauper, obviously both indoors. And then just last month, we saw Pentatonix down at Mohegan Sun, which is a casino in Connecticut, for their Christmas show. So good. We saw so many good shows.
Yeah, we definitely saw some good concerts this year. And my favorite thing was all the comedians we saw.
Yeah.
We saw my favorite, Nate Bargatze, down in Providence, Rhode Island.
I think it's Bargatze.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we saw Ben Bailey, the Cash Cab guy, who was hilarious.
Yeah, he was so funny. I didn't expect it because I wasn't really familiar with his stand-up comedy, because I've only ever really seen him on the Cash Cab, which is a fun show to watch if you've never seen it. I think it's on the Discovery Channel. But we had seen him at this strange venue in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And the venue's called the Spire Center, S-P-I-R-E. And what it is they took an old church and they made it into a theater. So the audience sat in the pews, which was kind of strange and kind of cool.
And it was really close up, so that was an added bonus.
Yeah, for sure. I love it when we can get home within 15 or 20 minutes from something.
We also saw some local comedians like Christine Hurley.
Oh, she's so funny.
She was on AGT.
She was. She bombed, though. I felt so bad for her. She messed up her stand-up routine.
Yeah.
That was such a bummer because she's so funny, you guys.
She's one of our favorites. And we saw Justin McKinney.
Yeah, he's so funny, too. He's really good. These guys should be more famous than they are because they're both super underrated. They're hilarious.
And plus we saw a bunch of local shows at breweries and small community theaters. Do you remember that one we went to that nobody laughed at?
Oh, my God. Yes. That was the worst quote unquote comedy show that we've ever been to. It was so bad that we actually ended up seeing another one of this comedy group's shows at a different brewery like a month later, and we didn't realize it was the same comedy group, but we were already there and we had already paid for the tickets by the time we realized it was the same comedy group, because honestly I would have left.
It was crazy. There were like 6 or 7 comedians, but not one of them was funny. They would tell a joke, and then it was just crickets.
Yeah, and these were like full audiences. The first one we had seen, there were over 100 people probably in the audience.
Yes.
No one was laughing. These guys were telling jokes. I don't even remember what the joke was, but one guy was like, "Oh, pine needles."
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with his story. Like,
didn't.
why did he even say that? Me and Chris just looked at each other like, what the heck is this guy talking about? It was the worst. But, so we are definitely more careful about local brewery shows. We do like to check to make sure who's playing now, because we don't want to get stuck at another one of this group's shows. And I'm not going to call them out by name because I would feel bad doing that.
So
But-
we also saw some plays and musicals this year. What did we see this year?
Yeah, we saw Hadestown, which was so good. We saw the Cher show, which was based on her life and her music. So good. One of my favorites was we saw MJ the Musical, Michael Jackson, which some of you guys might already know this, but I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, so that was so good. We saw Moulin Rouge, Kinky Boots, so good. Mamma Mia. We saw The Play That Goes Wrong.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, that was so good. And that was actually done at a local theater by,
Yeah.
it was like, I don't know what they're called, but they're like junior theater performers. So they were kids.
Yeah.
They ranged from like 15 to like 21, 22.
Yeah.
They did the whole thing and they were so good.
Every one of them was good.
So good, so good. And we saw The Nutcracker again this year, and I'm happy to report that Chris did not fall asleep like he did the first time we saw it, like 10 years ago or whatever. And we saw A Christmas Carol. We took my dad to see that. And then we saw a few shows at Arts Emerson, which is in Boston. And then a couple of random shows we had seen this past year were Late Night Catechism, which we took my dad to. He didn't love it that much. I thought it was hilarious. Chris loved it too. But my dad, there was a lot of audience participation, and my dad was a little uncomfortable with that, especially because we were in the front row. But anyway, it was really funny. I liked it. And then we saw Whose Line Is It Anyway with Colin Mockery and Brad Sherwood from the show.
Another one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was so good. We saw that also in Plymouth, at Plymouth Memorial Hall. So it was like 15, 20 minutes from home. So good. And this was a highlight of the year for me. But we saw Rainn Wilson, who you guys might know is Dwight Schrute from The Office. We saw him live down in Connecticut. And what he did was he showed an episode of The Office, Launch Party, for those of you who are familiar with the show. And that's the Alfredo's Pizza Cafe Pizza by Alfredo episode. If you are a fan of the show, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're not, you should go watch it because it's the best comedy series ever. But I digress. So he played the whole episode. He played the extended version, so it was like a 45-minute version. And then when the episode was over, he talked all about his experience being on The Office. He answered some questions that people sent in beforehand. And they even had a Dwight lookalike contest up on the stage, which was really cute.
Yeah, but it took us over 2 hours to get there, but it was absolutely worth it.
Yes, absolutely 100% worth it. And actually, if I remember correctly, we had a ton of traffic getting back because of construction. So I'm pretty sure it took us over 3 hours to get home that night, but I don't even care. It was amazing to be in the same room as him. And yeah, I don't even know what I was going to say. I lost it, but Chris can go
All
ahead
right,
with
you're
whatever
getting
he was
off
going to
track
say because
I know you could talk about Office
no,
all day.
I know. I was going to say something and then I lost it. So moving on. I could totally talk about The Office all day, but we're going to keep things moving. Another thing we did this past year was listen to a couple of local speakers at local libraries in the area. And I feel like I sound like such an old person when I say this, but the library has tons of great free stuff. And I'm not just talking about books that you can borrow. All of the libraries in our area have great guest speakers on all kinds of different topics at different times throughout the year. So I go on and I check their websites every so often to see their event schedule, to see if there's something cool we might want to go to. So for instance, in the spring, we had seen a guy speak, and I'm so sorry, I forget his name, but he was a Bigfoot researcher.
That was really interesting because he had a lot of evidence and it was interesting to listen to him speak about his adventures.
Yeah, it was. And he had some audio clips that he recorded, and he was relatively convincing that Bigfoot is actually out there. I don't know, but he was definitely convincing. And then we also went to a presentation at the library from a local paranormal researcher, and I also forget his name. His last name was D. Cristofaro, I think. I'm not sure. But he was based on the USS Salem here in Quincy, Massachusetts. And he talked about some of the experiences they had on the ship. It's an old warship. And then he showed us some of the equipment that he and his team use in the investigations.
Yeah, he also played some audio from some of their investigations that they collected, and he had some real cool photo evidence too.
Yeah, he really did. And then this was my favorite library speaker that we had seen over the past year. We went to hear Jeff Belanger speak at a library in our area. And if you're into spooky and paranormal sort of stuff, then you will definitely recognize that name. He's got at least one podcast, which I like because it's short and sweet. It's like 5 to 7 minutes, and he tells local tales and hauntings and cryptids. And then he wrote the book Weird Massachusetts, along with a couple of other books. He's a huge name in the paranormal community. He actually works on Ghost Adventures in the background with Zach Bagans. And he lives fairly local to us. He's down in Connecticut. But anyway, we've heard him speak before, but we ended up making a reservation at the library to hear him speak again this year because, one, it was free, and two, he's super knowledgeable about all sorts of different paranormal topics.
And we really liked the paranormal stuff. So listening to him speak was really cool. And like Robin said, it's really incredible that there are so many other free programs put on from the library. And I'm an avid reader, and I think we've talked about this before, so I go to the library a lot for books. But some of the presentations and speakers they bring in for free are really great.
Yeah, you're such an avid reader. When we went to the Jeff Belanger speaking engagement, I was going to say show, but it wasn't really a show. He went up to pick up a book at the counter, and the librarian just looked at him and got his book, like he's known in the library. I thought that was crazy and a little embarrassing. But
I'm pretty famous.
yeah, at the library, for sure. But back to the paranormal stuff. If you guys know Chris and I in real life, then you know we love to go on ghost tours. Whenever we travel, unless it's to Disney, it's something we do. And before you even ask, they're not scary. Although around Halloween time, you probably can find a scary one, but overall, they're mostly historical. Many years ago, actually, I had gone on one in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and it was a special Halloween one where they had people jumping out at us and scaring us up on Burial Hill. That was kind of scary. But in general, it's not like that. They're more informational, you know? So in 2024, we went on ghost tours in Washington, D.C., Newport, Rhode Island, Salem, Massachusetts, and Bridgewater, Massachusetts, which is right in the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle. And if you don't know what I mean when I say Bridgewater Triangle, go back and listen to our episode on the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to it, you should.
So, yes, please do. And we also did a haunted cruise where we heard some ghost stories on Lake Winnipesaukee up in New Hampshire this past October.
And I did not get seasick on that, so that was good.
Yeah, me neither, actually, and I usually do.
And we also done ghost tours in Newport and the Bridgewater tour before, but the Washington, D.C. and the New Hampshire were new ones for us.
Yeah, I really liked the one in Washington, D.C. The tour guide had some really cool stories, but the tour group was way too big. Like, there were over 50 people on that tour, I think. It was way too big. And the tour guide walked so fast that I couldn't keep up. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, that was crazy because even I couldn't keep up.
Right? And we had my aunt with us on that trip, actually, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And she was having trouble with her foot at the time, so she could barely even walk as it was. I felt so bad. She ended up just having to sit down on some stairs on the side of some building because she couldn't keep up. And yeah, I said something to the tour guide. And he was apologetic, but then he just kept walking just as fast afterwards, so it's like he didn't even hear me. But whatever. My dad, Chris, and myself not only heard some great ghost stories, but we basically ran a 5K.
Yeah, she's not exaggerating. It was crazy how fast this guy was walking.
Yeah, seriously. And plus, like I said, the tour group was huge, and I know my aunt wasn't the only straggler that fell off. And this is just my opinion, but I feel like there should be a cap on things like that, because it's hard to hear when you're in the back of a big group like that, because this guy didn't have a microphone. Sometimes the ghost tours do speak with a microphone. This guy did not. So I feel like there should be a limit. But let me get back to the haunted cruise we did up in New Hampshire, because I'm going to end up going off on a tangent about large tour groups. So there's not a ton of ghost tours up in northern New England. I know they have one up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which we've never gone on.
Maybe we should go next year.
Yeah, actually, let's add that to the 2025 list. We did a ghost tour in Portland, Maine in 2018, maybe even before that. I can't. It just all blends together. I can't even remember. And we hold on, I have to cough, you guys. Sorry, my bad. Chris asked me before we came down here if I wanted water, and I said no. And now I'm thinking I should have. He's handing me his Pepsi Max, but no, thank you. It's 9:12 in the morning. It's too early for me for Pepsi. But anyway, so you were right, and I was wrong. I should have brought the water down. So we did a ghost tour in North Conway, New Hampshire last year. But this year we did one on Lake Winnipesaukee, which was new. It was pretty cool. When you go up to northern New England, it's mostly mountains and nature, so there's not a ton of haunted stuff up there, I don't think. But this is the second time we've done a haunted boat tour.
Yeah, the first one was in Charleston.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Charleston. And it's tough when you do a boat tour at night because you're like out in the middle of a lake, or when we were in Charleston, it was a river. And they point at things on the shore, but you can't really see. So you just kind of have to take in the ambience of being on a boat and just enjoy the stories.
And it was definitely fun because I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. The guy that told the ghost stories had on like this weird mask. I should find it and post a picture of it. He didn't need to do that. He could have just told the ghost stories as, in his regular face. It would have been exactly the same. But anyway, another cool thing we did during the spooky season this past year was we did a crypt tour at the Old North Church in Boston.
Yeah, the Old North Church is Boston's oldest surviving church building and one of the Freedom Trail's most visited historical sites. You all probably know the saying, one if by land and two if by sea. Well, the Old North Church was the starting point of the midnight ride of Paul Revere.
Living in such an old part of the country, I don't even think people realize how many bodies there are under the streets of big cities like Boston, especially. For instance, I know that the Boston Common has thousands of people buried under there. If you've ever taken a ghost tour in Boston, they're going to tell you all about it. So I've heard the story a few times, but it's crazy to think about it because that's a pretty good-sized area of green space right in the middle of the city. So many people hang out there, especially in the summer, and they probably don't even realize what's underneath their feet.
Right. Also, many of the cemeteries have 3 or 4 times more bodies than there are headstones, which is super creepy.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, I think a lot of older cities are like that. I remember when we did the San Diego ghost tour a while back, they said the same thing. The ratio of actual bodies buried to the number of headstones was off by hundreds, maybe even thousands. I can't remember the exact numbers. And actually, talking about all the spooky stuff just reminded me that Chris and I actually went to the movies this year. I can't even remember the last time we went to the movie theater to see a movie. I think it was probably before COVID.
It was, but the movie we saw was the new Flash movie.
No, we saw the new Flash movie last year. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh.
Yeah, we saw. I forgot all about that. It was so unmemorable. We had gone because they brought Michael Keaton back as the Batman. Yeah, that wasn't a memorable movie. I'm not a DC comic fan. I do watch the Marvel movies, but I can't get into the DC comics. Sorry. But this year we also saw a Michael Keaton movie. And of course you probably figured out that I'm talking about the new Beetlejuice movie. And I know it got mixed reviews, but I really liked it. You know, with a movie like that, they're never going to recreate the magic that they made when the first Beetlejuice came out. But I think they did a really good job because it was a continuation of the story. It wasn't a remake. Plus, I love Winona Ryder. I've loved her since the 80s. And I love Jenna Ortega, too. They're both really, really good actresses. And plus, Moira Rose was so good. And you guys know I mean Catherine O'Hara, I assume.
And Michael Keaton is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, he really is. He's so good. So I think now we should get to talking about the trips we took in 24. So we did a couple of really cool trips, and of course we're going to tell you all about them. I think what we'll do is tell you about our New Hampshire trips first, and then we'll go in chronological order with the other trips we did, because we went to New Hampshire 4 times in 2024.
So we should probably tell you, everyone, that we go to New Hampshire a lot in general.
Yeah.
So 4 trips up there this year isn't uncommon for us. We go to Lincoln Woodstock area, and we actually own a quarter share of a condo unit at one of the resorts up there. It's kind of like a timeshare, but we have it more often than 1 week a year.
Yeah, we have it on a 4-week rotating schedule, so we get it every 4th week. Depending on who I'm talking to, sometimes I'll just say we get 1 week a month, but technically I think it works out to about 13 weeks a year.
Yeah.
So we have D week, and then there's one guy who has both B and C weeks. So we do trade with him sometimes, especially in the winter because he goes down south for the winter, and his weeks are always up for trade in the winter. And when we do trade, obviously we will trade some of our summer weeks with him that we're not going to use so that way he can have a place to stay. Because I actually don't even know what that guy does for the other 2 weeks. Because I think he lives on a boat somewhere, like he goes down south for the winter.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he does, but so we do trades with this guy, and I have no idea who owns A week.
Which is actually what we did in February. We
we did a
took
trade.
our 17-year-old and his best friend up there so they could spend a couple of days snowboarding at Loon Mountain in Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Our week didn't fall during school vacation week in 2024, but one of his weeks did, and we traded 2 of our summer weeks for his 1 February vacation week.
Yeah, we gave him our August and September weeks for his week in February. So February vacation week is a high value week, so it was worth it to us to give him 2 of our weeks that we weren't using in trade for the 1 week in February. And I guess I should probably mention this for the people who aren't in New England, because I know a lot of people have spring break in March from school, but here in New England, we get 1 week in February, and we get 1 week in April for our school vacations, and it falls on the 3rd week of the month in February and April.
Right, so February vacation is always the week of President's Day, and April vacation is always the week of Patriots' Day, which is a holiday here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and Patriots' Day is also the day of the Boston Marathon.
Right. So we went up to New Hampshire in February with the 2 boys. It was a pretty chill week for Robin and I, but the boys had real fun snowboarding.
Yeah, Chris and I just kind of hung out back at the condo, and we actually watched a lot of Ghost Hunters and stuff like that. I forget who the cable provider is up there, but there's a station that plays Ghost Hunters 24/7, and that's what we usually watch when we're up there.
And then we went back up there in May.
Yeah, and that trip is when it happened. We saw a moose. Actually, we saw 6.
Yeah, we did, because we went on a moose tour.
Yeah, we did. And it was 100% worth it. It's funny, because you go up to northern New England, and there are signs everywhere that say break for moose or moose crossing, but then there really aren't that many moose around. It's been a running joke for us for years. I will say that Chris and I did see a moose in the wild once during the day on our very first trip to New Hampshire together back in 2008. But other than that, you don't really see moose, and it's like a joke that there aren't really moose.
Yeah, that was one of my work trips.
Yeah, it was. The company that Chris used to work for used to do a huge company outing in New Hampshire every single summer. So they took the entire company and their families up to the North Conway area. And they rented out so many rooms at like a bunch of the hotels in the area. It was crazy.
It was amazing because it wasn't a small company.
Right.
There were over 1,000 employees, and we all went up there at the same time with our families for 1 weekend in July.
Yeah, we totally took over the area. I wonder if they still do it. But anyway, so the time we did see a moose in the wild, we were driving towards the Mountain View Grand Hotel from Attitash, which is where we were staying. I think that's Route 302. I'm pretty sure that's the route number. Don't quote me, but it's either 312 or 302. But anyway, so on our way home from the weekend, there was a moose just hanging out on the side of the road. It was wild. There were tons of people that had pulled over and they were taking pictures, and Chris and I were like just newly dating, and he's like, do you want to pull over for a picture? And I was like, yeah, obviously. I do have a picture of it somewhere, but I took it with my actual camera, so it's printed and it's in an album somewhere.
What's funny is that same route is where the moose tour took us on.
Yeah.
And that's where we saw the 6 moose this year.
Yeah, exactly. So even though, like I said, we saw the moose back in 2008 on our very first trip, we've been joking for years and years and years because of all the signs everywhere that you don't see moose. We've even gone out on quote-unquote moose hunts a bunch of times. When we're up there, when we have free time, I'll make Chris drive me up and down the Kankamankas Highway to just look for moose and like moose hot spots. And there were no moose. For years, there were no moose. We've been on so many searches for moose over the years. Do you want to tell them what you bought me for my birthday one year as part of my present?
Mention that. For her birthday one year, me and the boys got her a moose collar.
Yeah, it's like one of those things you blow into and it makes a moose sound. And it didn't even work. bring me any mooses, but
We might have a picture or a video of that.
there is, but you're not posting that. But maybe we'll take another one when my hair looks better.
And yeah, on the tour they say it's not guaranteed that you'll see a moose, but it's very likely. And it would just be our luck that when we did go on the tour, we wouldn't see one, but thankfully we did.
Yeah, thank God, because I wouldn't have been surprised if we didn't see anything based on our moose spotting luck. But thankfully we did. It was a really, really cool tour. Mooses, or is it plural of moose, or is it mooses?
Or
Moose?
meese.
Mooses? I'm not sure. Sorry. But anyway, they're beautiful. It was definitely one of the highlights of my year. It was crazy too because we were on like a tour bus sort of thing, like one of those smaller buses, and a couple of them just sauntered right across the street in front of the bus. Like, I get why there are so many collisions with moose because they just cross the street.
Yeah, they don't care about anyone.
They don't.
We
Nor
took the-
should they. We're in their land.
We took the tour out of Lincoln, New Hampshire, which is right near where we stay. But I'm pretty sure they have moose tours in North Conway because that's a big touristy area.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do have them over there. I'm pretty sure I've seen signs.
And then we went back up to the condo for New Hampshire for a week in July. The place that we stay at, I went to when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
My dad had a friend who had a big unit up there, and he would let my family use it over the summer when I was growing up. Now that my siblings and I are all adults with our families, we all go up there for a week every summer, like a big family reunion.
Yeah.
And because Robin and I have the unit already, the rest of our family, or most of them, at least rent units in the same resort. So we can all hang out together for the week with our families.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. We take over the resort area, and your mom comes up too.
Yes, she does. She loves being able to spend all the time with her kids and grandkids especially.
Yeah, she's a very, very proud grandmother. We call her Nina. She's very proud. And I don't think anything of note really happened while we were up there in July, though. It was just kind of a fun week at the lake and tubing in the river and stuff. Typical New Hampshire stuff.
We did do the lift up to the top of Cannon Mountain in July when we were there.
Yeah, we did. I've totally forgot about that. We've been to the top of several mountains in New Hampshire, but we had never been to the top of Cannon Mountain before. So we took the aerial tramway up, which is like a chairlift, but it's bigger. It's built for like 25 people at a time to go up and down. They're actually the one, I don't know which goes up and which goes down, but they're red and yellow, and they're called ketchup and mustard. It's cute.
The views up there were amazing, though.
Yeah, they definitely were. That's a higher mountain than we normally would go up to. Like, we've gone to the top of Loon a bunch of times, and that one's not that high. But they do have polar caves up there. They're glacial caves, so that's pretty cool. But then we went back to New Hampshire in October, just for a quick weekend. So that's leaf peeping season up there. So I'd say it was pretty crowded when we were there. We went to the top of a different mountain on that trip. We went to the top of Tenney, Tenney mountain, and that's in Plymouth, New Hampshire.
Yep, we took the chairlift up to the top, and we were able to see some amazing views of the foliage on the way up and the back down.
Yeah, I love that you said foliage and not foliage. But the leaves were the leaves were absolutely beautiful. But it was kind of weird because they didn't have anything up at the top of the mountain. So we've been to the top of like 4 or 5 different mountains, and this one didn't have anything. There were no snack shacks, no observation tower, nothing. It was crazy. I've never seen a mountain that didn't have anything up at the top. But they didn't charge too much to take the chairlift up, so I guess it was worth it. I definitely wouldn't do it again, though.
Yeah, the October trip was when we did the haunted boat cruise we mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that was the same day that we did the chairlift on Tenney Mountain. And so a few other trips we took in 2024 is we went to Maryland / Washington, D.C., Walt Disney World.
Twice.
Yes, twice. And we went to San Diego last month, but you guys already knew that because we did an episode from there.
Let's start with D.C. when we went there in April.
Yeah, we went over school vacation week.
Yeah, we just missed the cherry blossoms in D.C., but it was still a really nice time to go. The weather was perfect.
Yeah, it really was. So the reason for that trip was to take my aunt, who's my mother's sister, down to see my cousins who live in Bethesda, Maryland. And if you're not familiar, Bethesda borders D.C. My cousins who live down there in Bethesda come up to the Cape sometimes, which the Cape is Cape Cod for you non-locals. And my aunt hasn't been down to Maryland in years. So my dad joined us, and the 4 of us set off for Maryland for a long weekend. and we drove because it's only about an 8-hour drive from Massachusetts.
Yeah, and we rented the car for the trip so we wouldn't put the miles on our car.
Yeah, I think that was a smart decision. And we slept in Maryland. We got an Airbnb in Maryland, and we did obviously spend some time with my cousins. Actually, my aunt stayed with my cousins, and then Chris, my dad, and myself took the Airbnb, which was like 10 minutes away. So we slept in Maryland, and then we went to DC all the other days, and we did all the main touristy stuff. You know, the Smithsonian. What else did we do?
A couple other museums.
Yeah, we walked by all the
natural history.
monuments. Yeah, we did stuff like that. The main touristy stuff. I'll see if I can scrounge up some pictures, and I'll throw it up on our Instagram.
And our next big trip was Disney World.
Yes, this is
And
me
we
clapping.
went there at the
I love
beginning
to
of
talk
August.
About Disney. Yeah, and you're probably thinking to yourself that we're crazy for going in August because the weather is so hot and humid. But I would argue that there are less crowds, so it's worth it.
Yeah, we had definitely a good trip, but it definitely wasn't at one of our best.
I know.
3 out of the 4 of us ended up with colds, so we ended up canceling some dinner reservations, and we didn't do just as much as we planned to because we needed to take some rest.
Yeah, that was a huge bummer. And plus, there was a tropical storm that came in on the Sunday night into Monday of our trip, which was a bummer. It downpoured on the Monday. Remember that? Oh my God, we
Yeah.
were so wet. But of course, I know that that's hurricane season. Everybody who books a trip that time of year knows that it's hurricane season. So it's a chance you take when you book the trips. But like I always say, a rainy day at Disney is better than a sunny day at home. And that's a fact.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So when we were there, we did the Halloween party. And even though I was sick, I mustered up the energy and we had an amazing time. I mean, I wouldn't have missed it. The Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party is one of my favorite things to do at Disney. That was actually the highlight of the trip for me. Actually, the video that I took of the Headless Horseman riding at the beginning of the Boo to You parade went viral. I'm still getting likes on it. That's over at Masshole Mommy if you guys want to see it. But it's crazy that it's still like in the Reels rotation on Instagram. It's crazy.
Yeah, Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party is always awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's my favorite. So, and Chris said a few minutes ago that we went to Disney World twice, which we did. So we ended up going back just a few weeks ago because we wanted to do Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, which was also amazing. There's nothing that Disney does that isn't amazing. Halloween is my favorite. I'm always going to choose Halloween time over Christmas time, but I still love Christmas time. The parks and the resorts are beautiful at Disney World. It's such an amazing place to be around the holidays. And plus they do this huge gingerbread house at the Grand Floridian. Just the decorations are stunning.
And we were able to do the candlelight processional again this year.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that since before COVID.
Yeah, the candlelight processional is wonderful. If you're ever in Walt Disney World around the holidays, it's something you should definitely make time for. The narrator for the night we were there was Ralph Macchio, so I was psyched. He fit in perfect with our 80s vibes 2024 year that we've been having.
Yeah, the Candlelight Processional is about a 45-minute long show that tells the story of the first Christmas. Ralph Macchio told the story.
Nope. What's his last name?
Macchio told the story, and then there was a choir singing behind him. It was really something to see.
Oh my God, Chris. Yeah, it is something to see. It's visually stunning, and it's so beautifully performed by the narrators and the choir. I get goosebumps every time I see it. And they do switch out narrators. I forget who we saw the first time. I can't think of her name.
She was in Marvel.
Yeah, she was. She was in Marvel, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I forget. She did the voice of Mulan. I can't think of her name. She was really great.
Yeah.
I know Barney Stinson. What's his name? Oh my God.
Neil Patrick
Yeah,
Harris.
NPH. Yeah, he does it every year. They have a bunch of different narrators, but Ralph Macchio. What's his last name?
Yeah. Oh, I get it. It was a good show.
Okay, fine. So lastly, we went to San Diego over Thanksgiving week.
Like Robin said, we already did an episode about our trip while we were out there. But the highlight for me was the day trip we took to Disneyland.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you can't tell after today that we're the biggest Disney fans, then now you know. And knowing is half the battle. But it was wonderful because our family, so Chris's, you know this already because you heard the episode, but Chris's brother, Keith, his amazing wife Virginia and our nephew Jonah live there. So they came to Disneyland with us for the day.
Yeah. If you couldn't tell, we loved everything Disney.
Yes, yes. We are completely obsessed. I know some people don't get it, and you don't have to. We get it, and that's what matters to us. So we're coming to the end here. I know this has been a long episode for us, but one more thing I did want to tell you guys is that we bought a new car in 2024. It's a very long story, so I'm going to spare you from the whole story, but we sold our Toyota Highlander, which I loved and I miss, to our 20-year-old because he needed a new car. The used car market is really tough right now. I don't know if that's just here in New England or if that's everywhere. I think it's everywhere. But since we didn't need the larger sized SUV anymore, since the kids are older and they're not with us as much, we decided to downsize. So we went with the Toyota RAV4, and we are loving it so far.
Yeah, it's a really nice car, and it worked out for us and for the 20-year-old.
Yeah. So that's a wrap for our 2024, and we hope you feel like you know us a little bit better now.
And does this mean we're going to have to do a year-in review podcast episode every year?
Obviously. And, excuse me, who knows what's in store for 2025 for us? I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. But one thing I do know for sure is that there's an international trip coming up for Chris and I. There are some milestone birthdays coming up in 2025, so we're going to be celebrating in a pretty big way.
Yeah, I'll be 50 and you're turning 29 again?
Yes, that is correct.
So stay tuned for that. And don't forget to check Instagram for pictures. Robin's going to post a bunch out there of all our different trips and some stuff we've done out through the year. So check those out when you get a minute.
Yeah, actually, I have some videos of the mooses, and I'll find that, and then I'll throw some pictures from our trips and stuff. Disney, maybe Washington, D.C. Oh, and Disney. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. If you guys know anyone that you think would enjoy the podcast, please let them know. Because word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about the podcast.
Also, if you have time, we appreciate any reviews on our podcast apps.
On your podcast apps, even.
Yeah. And it helps our podcast get pushed higher into the rotation. And thank you for the help.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to comment about the time travel, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Or we can just forget this conversation ever happened.
You brought it up.
I did bring it up. So next week, we're actually going to share a podcast we recorded while we were in San Diego. So we did an interview with our sister-in-law, Virginia. She's my sister from another mister. I love her so much. But she's got a really cool business, and we talked to her about that. So this one's going to be especially interesting, I think, to parents with high school-aged kids. So you guys aren't going to want to miss this episode. It's awesome. And until next time, Happy New Year, you guys.
Yep. Happy New Year, and see you later, alligator.
In a wild crocodile.